Golf ball rollback is the story, Dark Star. And I have to say, I don't think it matters. From my point of view, it doesn't matter. And I know you feel strongly the other way. Where do you stand on this one?
Yeah, I think this is catastrophic. This is a game crusher. I'm going to go to Ricky first and just say, Ricky made a great point. They added all these people because of COVID, right? Games strong, games growing. I think it's more about number of rounds. But Ricky mentioned, hey, all these people joined. Now all of a sudden you're going to cut the distance by 20 yards and tell them, oh yeah, go still have fun, play, enjoy the game. Really? I'm not going to enjoy it as much if I'm hitting it 20 yards shorter. And we don't know. They only tested at 100. They only want to test it at 127 miles an hour. That's not even close. The second thing regarding the pro game, you're going to take another segment, maybe another 10, 15% of the players, and they can't win a tournament. You're going to put a lot more people in the Kevin Kisner category.
Because they're losing more. Explain that to me. They're losing. If everybody loses 30 yards off the tee equally, and I'm guessing that you don't believe that.
Because here's the situation. Why Rory's going to love this? It's going to benefit him. So Rory is, if you looked at Tiger's event, they were hitting 9-iron. Justin Thomas hit a 9-iron into one of the par fives. Rory's consistently hitting 6, 7, 8 irons into par fives. You roll that back, Rory's hitting 4, 5, 6 irons in, and Brian Harman now can't reach a par five. Just won the British Open. Now you're telling me, yeah, Brian, congratulations, you did that, because you have no chance of ever winning again, because the courses are going to now be actually par 72s for you, and they're still going to be par 68s for Rory. So you take another segment of the middle to lower golfer distance-wise on the pro level, and they have no chance of winning an event now. When you're giving somebody 4 shots, you can't beat them. 4 shots a round, 16 a tournament in some of these events.
No, it's a good bridge to where I'm coming from, which is let's go back. Let's go back to the actual heyday of golf, not this blip that they saw when people were locked into their homes and a golf course was the one place or one of the few places you could escape to, at least in America. Let's go back to the 50s, 1950s and 1960s here in America, the heyday of golf in America. Everybody played, not everybody. That was their biggest golfing, experience per capita in the United States. What was going on with the equipment and the pro game? And let's use Jack Nicklaus as the example because he was by far and away the biggest hitter. And I've seen Lee Trevino interviewed on this point exactly, and he made your point. He said, well, let's start with the fact that Nicklaus started out 4 under because he hit every par 5. So he was 4 under. That's pretty good. No kidding. So there was a huge advantage to Jack back in that time frame, but you got very different equipment, but everybody had the same equipment, and they hit it a lot shorter. A big drive then was in the air. I'm going to say was 260-ish, 250, 260, maybe 270, although in the air. They got more roll back then because they didn't water the golf courses the same as they do today. But what would be the difference? Let me ask you. I'm going to come to you. Let's compare 1965 to 2025. What's the difference there with the ball? I mean, well, how do you see it as a catastrophe now and not then?
Well, the big difference is, as you had mentioned, you could Lee Trevino, you could roll it out there. The swing was completely different. The equipment was completely different. You had that situation where you moved into the ball with your whole body instead of turning, and therefore you created a lower trajectory and you created more roll. Today's game is all about ball flight in the air. Mm-hmm. Guys launch the ball. They're carrying it over 300 yards now, the bigger hitters. And guess what? Even if you hit it in the rough, if there is any rough, most of these courses don't have rough anymore, you're still out there 300 yards. Where back then, when Nicklaus was playing, yeah, you had to scoot that ball down the fairway. And if you missed it and you hit it in the rough, you weren't coming close to par 4s, nor were you coming close to par 5s. So the game has changed in where it's an air game now. It's no longer the way the Scottish developed the game where you play along the ground. That's the biggest difference. And as you said, they can water a course and do whatever they want to it.
Exactly. So, you're making my point. You're making my argument. And I know we're on opposite sides of this one. which is always fun.
Okay, yeah.
I think that did the golf courses setups, let's just say setups, although design, of course, more recent designs, but did they start setting them up different because they just felt like doing that, or did they start setting up the courses differently because the ball changed? The ball changed, and then superintendents and tournament organizers reacted to it. That's the way I see it.
For reasons. Well, for fan base, they want them green, so they water the crap out of them now.
No,
They
at the
think
pro
green is in
level.
better
Let's just
shape.
say the pro level.
Well, same with the pro game. They used to have high rough. Now they don't have high rough. They've, as you said before, they put all the trees in carbon offset areas. I mean, look at Tiger's event. You still had actually Tiger's event this weekend kind of changes things. I've never seen roll like that on Bermuda.
New Bermuda grass.
Really want to do,
New Bermuda is awesome. It doesn't have a lot of grain, or very little grain in the New Bermuda. It's tremendous.
But it's interesting. They have decided that low scores, 20 under, winning every tournament is good for ratings, good for fans, and having superstars. And my initial point, and the main point is, you are now getting rid of a bunch of pros that can win tournaments, and you're keeping just the upper echelon. You are creating a smaller segment of players that can win because of distance, and they feel that's better for their pocketbook. And I think overall that's terrible for the game.
Well, you're saying that Rory McIlroy and the big hitters have undue influence over the R&A and the USGA that are proposing this change? Try not to make.
They don't have any influence, but the guys that hold the purse strings want to make more money. I started the show out.
The USGA and the R&A are kowtowing to Titleist and Callaway?
No. Well, no.
Okay.
The ball manufacturers don't actually want to spend the money on R&D to change the golf ball. It's going to initially cost them a lot of money, and they're going to lose money initially.
Well, I don't want to get too far afield. My premise to you was, talk to me about 1965 versus 2025 or 2024. And you did, but I'd like to stay on that course, because what I'm going to say right now, I'll say it right now. If you're hitting 10, 15, 20 yards shorter off the tee, the average player, okay, and it'll obviously be very different. For the slower your swing speed, it'll be interesting to see how they're calculating whether you lose a smaller percentage of because you would have a trampoline effect, would have less effect if you swing slower. But why wouldn't you simply move up a tee, make the course shorter for yourself to fit the ball? And this isn't just your ball. Everybody is playing the same exact ball. And I think that's important. I don't like bifurcation. I'll say that now. Everybody's got the same ball. Now a par 5 that's 500 yards is a reasonable par 5, whereas today it's clearly a par 4. And move up.
I have no interest. I have no interest in moving up.
But everybody is going to be affected the same. Why would you stand back the same tee when the ball doesn't go as far? Why would you do that?
Everybody's not going to be affected. Everybody cannot be affected the same. That's lunacy. All the other
factors.
Take
me to 1965.
Launch angle, spin rate.
That's my litmus test. Take me to 65. Take me to 1965 when everybody hit it a lot shorter.
The courses were a lot shorter.
Fine, we'll make shorter courses. We can do that already. We have tees.
Wait. But you also, the biggest difference is every year equipment got better, the ball got better, people hit it further. Now, this is not the same as 1965. This is the exact opposite. You're going to tell me all of a sudden tomorrow I'm going to carry my driver from 265 to 245 or 235. I don't know how this ball is going to affect me. Keegan Bradley said he lost 40, 50 yards. If he loses 40, 50 yards, I might lose 60 yards.
And
I have no interest in playing if I can't hit the ball 200 yards off the tee.
Let's pretend that happens, that you personally, let's make it personal, that you personally would lose 50 yards on a drive, and you think that the guys you play against won't. It'll affect them dramatically differently, not subtly
It
differently,
will affect
dramatically
some
differently.
people differently. And the point is,
Well, you
I'm
play
not gonna
against
have
me.
time.
How much yards do you
Wait,
think I'm going to lose?
I don't know. You might lose the same amount.
I would think
But
so.
the point is,
I would think
you
so.
and I don't have the time to go change all our equipment. We don't want to spend the money to change all our equipment. We don't want to spend hours on the driving range, figure out, well, now I have to hit an 8-iron. Instead of 160, it goes 115. Really?
I don't. Well, let's take a. No, let's
And
go.
obviously, I may be exaggerating, but the point is, I don't also have the time, nor do I want to spend the money to change equipment, to go through a series of, I got to spend 20 rounds learning how far my golf ball goes again. You know, the pros are practicing 8 hours a day. I play golf 8 hours a month.
I don't know. I think the change to the ball. I mean, I'm just going to keep batting away what you're saying, and it's what makes a nice debate. I don't think you spent. I don't think it was concerning or emotional or devastating to go the other direction. I don't think when you hit the first Pro V1 in whatever that was, the year 2000 ish, over the green by 15 yards, you just adjusted on the next hole. You're like, wow, that 8-iron took off. Let's not do that again. Maybe these V1s really do go. And I remember hitting one, and it was like, wow, that's very different. That's like a Super Ball bouncing off the club face, and that took about a minute to get used to that. I mean, not literally, but I was excited about it, and off I went because I could, be closer to the green. Fine. And then everybody else started playing the same ball, and I don't think it really mattered much. And we just got used to it very quickly. So working in the opposite direction, I would hit a ball and it would go a lot less far, and I would hit more club the next time, the very next shot. I would think I would do that. And so would you. And we're all equal. I don't practice, you don't practice. Well, that's not true. We practice some, but we wouldn't be out like a pro because nobody's paying us to do that. And
Yeah.
so what?
And my point is, I just have no interest in playing the game at 6,000 yards again.
Well, that's personal.
I've said that my psyche, my mental game, when I can't hit the ball 220 in the air, I'm done. It's just not going to be that fun.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't see it that way at all for myself. I mean, I that's just a personal preference, and maybe you're right. Maybe most people enjoy watching a ball fly farther than less far. I don't know. I think that's all relative. I mean, if you hit it 200 yards in the air, it's still a long way. If your brain is saying that's a long way. Now we say 300 yards is a long way in the air, and 200 is not. Well, if the ball changed, let's take a floater. Those of you in with golf courses that have to have driving ranges into a lake, and there are a lot of those in Florida, where Darkstar and I play a decent amount of golf. So we're doing that quite frequently. The floating balls that I've been exposed to lately, particularly, I don't know what changed, if anything, are really pretty good. They feel pretty darn good to me off the club face. They don't really feel that different from a regular ball that I play, and they're definitely flight limited. They don't go nearly as far, dramatically less far, but it doesn't bother me really at all, and I'm surprised at that. As it used to bother me quite a bit. If I saw a floating range, I was like, that's not going to be any good. But nowadays, the two places where we play sort of regularly, they have that situation. It doesn't bother me a bit. I can stand out there for an hour and a half and hit balls, and I feel pretty good about it.
But I'm not working on distance there. All I'm working on is flight and
contact,
direction.
Solid contact, shaping the shots. The balls seem to perform, at least at our level, right? I mean, we're good players, but we're not touring pros by any stretch. So the ball seems to perform similarly. And I'm not making the argument that it doesn't perform differently at all. I'm just, again, where I'm coming from is you move up, the course is still, if the ball only goes 250 in the air, and that's more than what they're trying to do. They're only trying to take 15, 20 yards out of it.
Right.
But if it goes 225 yards in the air, I'm playing you. What do I care if it's all the same? And your point is, well, psychologically, I don't want to watch the ball not go 280.
Well,
I don't see that. I don't see
my
that as a
point-
big deal.
well,
And it does tie
from
into
my personal
the
experience,
old game and how the old game was played.
right? From my personal experience, like my father, for example, his friends, they've all quit. They didn't want to play anymore because they
Well,
just couldn't hit
why?
it
The
far
ball
enough.
goes
It was no
farther
fun.
than ever.
It was no fun to just hit the ball along the ground and hit it 200 yards and hit it along the ground at their age, and they just quit. They
Well,
all
but the
quit.
ball goes farther than ever. Why wouldn't that encourage older folks to play more?
The point that I'm making, as you get to a stage, and I'm going to get to that stage now 2 to 5 years sooner, where I'm going to quit the game
Because you can't carry it
because I
280.
can't hit it as far. Exactly. So people like my father played into their 70s, or even some of his friends into their early 80s. Now I'm going to quit. Now I'm going to play. Now I'm going to quit at 70 or 65. I may only have 5 years left of golf if they shut this down. I have no interest. Like I said,
You are a darn good-looking 78-year-old man, in my opinion.
anyway.
You don't look a day over 77.
But
Okay. I mean, that's a personal thing. I don't. That's like so far out of my thinking that I can't relate to that. But that's okay. Some people don't like steak. I don't relate to that, but fine. I don't care. What do I care? I want to go play. This ball thing ties into so many other points that I feel strongly about. The way the game is played today versus the way it was designed to be played by the Scots, I think, is a shame, a real shame. And the farther we get from that, the less I like it. It's not a, and I think from previous episodes that we do where it comes in, the whole idea here is to get kids to play. And we got a ball that goes farther and farther and farther, and the equipment's better and better and better. And you're exactly right. Now, setups and designs that are new emphasize carry. And you hit it from point A to point B, and what's between is you never see it. It's all flyover country. And that stinks. That stinks. But my point was that hasn't helped kids play more. Not all. We have fewer and fewer. Since the last 20 years, let's just use round numbers, that the balls have gotten so much longer. We've had fewer and fewer kids playing in that same 20 years.
Well, let me echo that point. So as we talked about, my son played on the golf team, and the last few years, it's embarrassing how much further he hits it than I do. That being said, when he plays with his friends, he has to move up already. Okay, he's not, he doesn't want to move up anymore. He won't play with his friends anymore. Therefore, his friends will not play. Because they play because they like going out with him. He shoots nice low numbers and he has to give them a million shots and all that kind of stuff.
He's a better player. I mean, than they are. Okay. I don't know.
It's already a very difficult game.
Yeah.
To get to find guys that are your skill level.
Yeah. Well,
okay. How many? When we go out and we get paired up, have we had in the last 2 years, 3 years, when we go out and are playing, and these people are pretty close to our age, have we had one player better than us?
Well, no,
I can't think of one.
But that's. I would argue the opposite of what you're arguing. I would say that, and I like to use extremes and then work back towards the center. So if I handed out, if we were going to go have a really fun afternoon of, tequila shots and margaritas all the way around the golf course, which would be a lot of fun, with a designated driver, naturally, for the end. If we were going to do that, and I handed out, and it was a money game, and I handed out plastic golf balls, the wiffle balls with the holes in them that are great for practicing. And I grew up playing with those around my yard. And that's how I really learned how to play golf. And it was great fun playing against my brother. And we would hit the base of a tree, and a tree was the hole, and you had to bounce the ball off the tree stump or whatever. And it was great. We'd be out there for hours. And if I handed those out, those balls only go 30 yards, 40, maybe 50, not 50, then 30 yards if you hit it really well. I think that would be a gas. We all got the same ball. I mean, we'd probably play 6 holes, and it would take, and that would be a whole 2 hours or whatever it would take, because we'd be hitting 10 shots or 15 shots on a hole, it'd be a different par. It'd be totally different, but that's the point. The game would be relative. It's not a game of absolutes. It should be not that. It is sort of that because what'd you shoot relative to par? Were you over under? And that's BS. That is not the way the game was designed, not the way it's supposed to be played. It's a match play game. I play you. We play as a team against 2 other people or a bigger group than that. And hitting a little plastic ball 30 yards, 15 yards would be a lot of fun from my point of view. If that were all the game ever were, they would redesign golf courses, obviously, to accommodate that ball. And that would be, I don't know, would that be catastrophically bad? I don't know. You wouldn't get hurt by hitting each other with the ball. Kids might like that, actually, and you'd have 6-hole golf courses.
And I'm glad you would like that.
I might. Not. I don't know.
However, one thing that we're going to see in the next few years, a lot of these new golf courses are building their 18 holes and having a 9-hole par 3 situation where they think they're going to get more people to play that and then transition to the 18 holes. I don't see it. I hope it works. I like golf, but I don't see it working all that well because you still don't have the young people. You still have to invest in the equipment. And the problem is not, it's the time, it's the investment. It's very expensive. One thing that I don't know, I'm going to bring it up right now. Like I said, when I talk about these golf course equipment manufacturers, they're going to have to spend a lot of money on R&D. That cost is going to be passed on to the consumer as it always is in every single economic endeavor ever. The consumer always ends up paying. Golf balls are going to be $10 now a ball. And that's going to be another major factor. Okay?
Yeah. I don't see it that way, but I know you do.
Okay. You know what? Here's where we should have started the show, though. Remember, I'm going to just read the text. And then I'd like to talk about this because we don't have much more time. Question. Why would you roll the ball back? Why wouldn't you just cap it where it is now? The real question is, what's the ulterior motive? Because the consumer is going to pay the cost of the R&D and ball price will be $10. So that's what I text you yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Why do you need to roll it back?
Because golf course maintenance and golf course expense is out of control.
Okay.
I think is the first reason the R&A and USGA would. They got superintendents up their tail saying, look, fertilizer is made out of oil. Fungicides, pesticides, they're all, chemicals that come out of petrochemical plants. Expensive.
So you're telling me you're going to get rid of the back tees now? You're just going to close them down? And how's that's really going to help? I'm confused. You still have to maintain the greens and the fairways and the bunkers.
You're taking out 15% of the grass. Sure. Of course it's cheaper. A lot cheaper.
Taking out, and where are you taking this grass out?
The ball's not going to go as far. So you had the fairways are going to be shorter.
Well, my point to that is the pros are still going to have to play on their yardage. The whole point is to make par 72 again, not 68 for everybody. So the pros are still going to be playing 72, 7,400 yard courses. They have to.
Maybe not. Depends on how they change the ball. I mean, a 6,800 yard course back in the 60s. Again, I go back to vision. When things get polluted down in the weeds in a debate, you got to go back to the big picture. The game was phenomenally interesting to people. Ben Hogan got a ticker tape parade in New York City.
The game was growing and the equipment was getting better. Now you're knocking the game back.
The equipment didn't change dramatically from, and we need like a guy like Brandel of Chambly would be here because he would know this. When did equipment go steel shaft exactly? I think that was fairly long ago. And when did we get a Balata ball or something close to it? And then how long did that stay the dominant equipment? For quite a while. Ben Hogan played a steel shaft, as did Arnold Palmer, as did Jack Nicklaus. And those guys are all generationally different. So Ben was before Arnie. Arnie was before Jack. Jack handed off to, I guess you'd say, Greg Norman, who played the same steel shaft, basically the same ball. And Greg handed off to Tiger Woods. Is that fair? It's pretty close to fair.
Okay.
And Tiger Tiger himself grew up with not that ball. So he grew up with steel shafts and a balata. And in 2000, around the time that he went low and lapped the field at Pebble Beach in the U.S. Open with a special ball, right? You're famously on that story.
Yeah, he had a different ball.
He had a different ball a couple of months, ahead of everybody else. And that made a big difference. But that's when it changed. So from let's just use big round numbers, and somebody that's watching this every 5 seconds that has time to do it could tell us. But from 1950 to 2000, so for 50 years, it was roughly the same, roughly. And the sport flourished. Now, that's a broad brush. It could have flourished and it did flourish for many, many, many reasons. But
they never made the equipment worse.
No, they never did. No. But steel shafts. That's my point. It didn't change dramatically. There were subtler changes to it. But that's just a point. That's just a data point. I'm not going to go deeper down that rabbit hole because I want to talk more about the game itself and how the ball influences it. I think Jack Nicklaus is a huge proponent of a golf ball rollback. And then how you do it, obviously, you're definitely onto that topic. It's important how you would do it. But if we could go back to, I'm with Jack. If we could go to a day where golf courses were 6,500 to 7,000 yards, max, 7,000-ish, maybe 7,200, and the ball didn't go in the air or anything like it goes in the air now, and spin has a phenomenal impact on this. It's not just trampoline, it's the spin that matters hugely too, coming off the club face, and that's been so much reduced. So the ball goes straighter, a lot straighter today than it did. There's less skill involved, more power involved. I don't like that game. Really don't. Not really. I like on the ground, firm fairways, less water, more strategy, more skill, more variety of shots. To your point, much more emphasis at allowing more players, Brian Harman to compete successfully, Kevin Kisner to compete successfully against Rory.
But that's not...
That's how I would want the game to be.
And I would want the game to be like that. Unfortunately, the higher-ups in golf have decided wet, slow, speeds up play, and low scores are better for ratings, which I don't like. I've said that a million times. I would love to take the sprinkler key away from where I play in the summer. I'd like to break it off in the lock so he can't use it because it's always slow and wet. The point that my counterpoint to your argument is there's only been subtle, gradual change since the 50s. 70 years, and it's just been a subtle, 0.5% here, 0.25% there on a yearly basis. Now you're going to make a 15 or so percent change overnight. That's not going to go well. And you're going backwards, not forward.
Yeah.
So
you could be right. I don't see, I wouldn't stop playing golf. I don't think you would either.
It depends if I found something better
I'd play
to
the
do.
same amount. No, it's a unique game. It is truly a unique game, and a unique in great ways. So, but let's talk about losing a ball, because I want to get that in before we run out of time. Losing a golf ball stinks, not just because it affects your score. That's not even the main reason. It stinks because they're expensive. There's no reason that I should have to go out and buy, or you or any player should have to have a dozen golf balls ready to go all the time to go play a couple of rounds of golf. They're durable, so you can play the same ball for a long time, many holes that is, and that's great. But versus balata, that's a huge advantage. That was a big problem with balata. They get bent, they get knocked out of round after 3-4 holes, and you had to switch. Terrible. Now that's not the case, obviously, but losing them. So if you hit it farther, you're going to lose them. You know something about vision. It's harder to see it farther away as you age, for sure, but it doesn't even matter. The average 20-year-olds, if they hit it a long way, it's going to get lost more often. Obviously, a smaller percentage offline results in a larger margin of error. So your dispersion goes way up the farther you hit the dang thing. So hit it less far, dispersion comes in mathematically, your dispersion reduces, and now I don't lose golf balls. And that, I think, is another really important thing. So maybe a golf ball, and I don't think so. I'm not agreeing with Darkstar here, audience, but let's just pretend that a golf ball costs $10. Well, if I can play it for a week, great. I would not like to lose it. And if losing it means not hitting it too far so I can still find it. And that's not meaning over the green. It means the dispersion side to side. I would prefer that. And keeping the ball on the ground more with a faster fairway, firmer fairways, takes care of your distance differential that you're worried about at the pro level or at any level. It's all better. Stop watering the damn golf courses. Stop doing that.
Well, that's the big joke is they keep talking about sustainability. Rory's comment, we got to make it sustainable, which I think is code for you're gonna pay more because we're gonna save the planet. Well, then stop watering the golf courses.
Yeah. Well, that's our fault. That's not my fault or your fault. That's the fans' fault. That's the average player's fault. Superintendents will report to you every 100% of the time. Why do you keep the dang things so green? It doesn't help them. It's more work for them.
I know.
They're like,
right.
because the members want it that way.
All right. But to your point about losing a golf ball, well, that's only because golf has become so Florida and swamp centric and southern centric. When I play up north in the Midwest, I never lose a golf ball. I have a bucket of shag balls because after I hit a tree 17 times and play 5 rounds with the ball, I have to retire it. It's kind of looks
but there are more rounds played in America or just around the world. Of course, there's going to be more rounds played in better climates because you can play year round.
My point is, I don't think about losing golf balls that much. I never think about it up north because you never lose a golf ball. And
well, that's not true.
South,
that's silly. What do you mean? You don't have lakes?
Yeah, we have lakes. We have a few.
Yeah, well, the average 15, 20 handicapper is, shaken when he's got to carry that lake. He or she has to carry that body of water.
All right.
It's a hazard. It goes in there.
And even and some of the courses in Florida we play, we can lose a golf ball. And others we play, we don't lose a golf ball.
Well, look, my point is, I think the great architecture, because I don't want to leave that water hazard point right there on the table because it just came up. The game can be awesome and delightful, hello Scotland, without any water. The reason you have all these stupid water hazards all over the place is in large measure because the ball carries. You're forcing people to go over an obstacle because they're flying the ball. If the ball stays closer to the ground and goes less far, you don't need to have water hazards nearly as much, and you'd be more strategic with where you'd put them.
Donald Ross never had water in play, and of course, he's one of the great architects of all time.
It'd be interesting to get Crenshaw and Coors on this program and go through this with them. I like those guys. I like what they do, and some of the other guys that design old style courses. I'm all for roll. I'm a roll guy. I like the game that way because that's the way it was designed. And this ball rollback, I suspect, if done correctly, would encourage that. And they should come out and beat the drums right now. Like, look, we're going to do a ball rollback. And in sentence 2, in paragraph 2, it says, stop watering the damn golf course.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. They're trying to attract people to the game, and the only one of the ways to do that is to have these greens slow. And I hate slow, wet greens because I spin the ball too much. Because
you can water the greens, and you can take care of a green differently than the fairway for sure. Obviously, so the green speed should be whatever the players want them to be at that particular club, be it a public track or a private track. That's a different question altogether. Grasses are vastly better nowadays than they were even 10, 20 years ago. So there's a lot of moving parts to this thing, but generally speaking, I like the idea, and of course it matters a lot how they execute the idea. And if they got it wrong, then yeah. That not everybody in golf world, wants to stick a pitchfork in me because it seems like everybody is with you, and meaning that they absolutely don't want to lose a single yard of distance.
Right. So
I would say, I'm for roll. I'm not for flying the ball 270. I'd like to hit it 240 and have it roll 30 yards. It's a more interesting game that way, much more. So it could be counterintuitive where the ball flies less far, but if you have a harder surface upon which you play, the ball may actually go the same distance or even farther.
Right. That's not going to happen.
How do you know? It might be forced. It might be an unintended consequence, but they should make an intended consequence. The goal here, amongst other things, should be firmer golf courses.
All right. Anyway, I wish they had firmer golf courses. I'd love to see it, but as you know, they just love water. Everywhere we play, it's just water, water, water. The sprinklers come on during the day. It's ridiculous, and we play a lot of different courses. I don't see it. Like I said, going backwards has never been good. Let's also look at the fact the big manufacturers will have to spend a lot of money on R&D. How about I looked on golfballs.com yesterday just to see. I didn't realize there are 40, 50 people that make various golf balls. All those little companies, they're not going to be able to spend the money. So how about the incentive to cheat? They're just going to keep selling their golf balls and say these are illegal, and everybody's going to use them. Golf Digest did a survey. It's over like 65%, 2/3 of the people said, I'm not going to do it. So that's another problem. I'm going to go out and I got to check my opponent's golf ball every time I play. Oh, did you just switch balls? That doesn't look that. Boy, you hit that drive a long way. Every time somebody hits a drive by you 15 yards, you're going to go like, let's go look at that ball.
Well, you can do that. You can do that now. You could have an illegal club face, ball. You can do all that now. Okay.
But you're going to put a lot of those little companies out of business. They're not going to be able to make golf balls that conform. There's no way.
That's unanswerable. I don't. It depends on how it's done, right? I mean, they have companies that make floating golf balls right now. I mean, I don't know the manufacturing process or what it would take to switch it. It seems to me that it's not an automatic that this would be bad for ball providers. It might be, hey, everybody's got to get new balls.
Well, everybody's going to have to get new balls, and they're going to be more expensive.
Yeah, I think that's a finer point. I mean, we can wrap up. It's losing golf balls, having golf course design and set up in such a way that the average player loses a bunch of golf balls is clearly better for golf ball manufacturers. That is undebatable, unarguable. Yeah. So having a golf course industry that doesn't force you to lose golf balls would be great for the player and bad for the ball maker. So there's a conflict of interest there, big time. So I'd be much more interested in focusing on that aspect of it.
Well, to reiterate something that you just said there, why all these new designs in the places where they're building golf courses, let's take Florida, for example, there's water everywhere. Why? Because you don't have to take care of a lake. Okay? It's cheaper to have a lake than all that grass to take care of, right?
True. They also have a lot of dredge and fill, the requirements there. So it's cheaper to build a golf course by doing it that way, for sure, because you can use your own fill, make a hole in the ground. But Florida, that's an interesting conversation. If we had a huge Florida contingency, maybe we could go into that. That is interesting. And again, I'd love to have, we could get a golf course. We'll get an architect on that can talk to this. Is it possible to build in certain parts of the world without dredging and filling, practically speaking, because you need a lot of fill? Maybe not, maybe, don't know. But again, there's another point. Crenshaw Coors type architects, I'd like to move less dirt versus more dirt. And ball has a lot to do with that, maybe everything to do with that. You got to remove all the earth to make target golf because the ball flies so far. If the ball didn't fly so far, you wouldn't have to do that.
More golf courses are closing, at least where I live, than are being built. We had 5 golf courses closed in the last few years.
The game is going out of business over time. Yeah. Absolutely. Kids don't play. We know this. We say this every episode. And if you came to me scientifically and said with a really well, not thought out, but well researched, because it would take a long time, but argument, and you'd have to test market a lot, that kids that were 16 years old, 15 years old, were more likely to play because the ball went a certain distance. Okay, fine. That's important evidence. That right now, that is not evident. There is nothing that says that, because the trends have been in the opposite directions. Young people play less, ball goes farther. They may not be related. They may just be correlated. But I don't know that it matters. I said to somebody the other day, look, you want to get 8 kids out on a golf course that are 12 years old and have a good old time with a match, 6-on-6. Good luck with that. You can't do that. That doesn't work. But you can take them to the park and play 6-on-6 soccer or football or even basketball 5-on-5.
No, well, all right. We know that we know young people don't play. We're not debating that.
Yeah, we need them to play.
Okay.
Golf ball ties into that argument.
Right. So here's the thing. Having people like me quit is not going to add more people to the game, because it's people like myself, people like you, that bring people to the game. We bring our kids to the game. They bring their friends to the game, our grandkids, etc. If I quit, guess what? The Lucas Glovers don't exist in the world, because Grandpa doesn't take Lucas to the golf course because he stopped playing, because he can't hit the ball out of his own shadow anymore.
Yeah, there's something to that. Well, it's our kind of subject, a lot of layers. Yeah. We'll get into it again, because I know you want to dive into the technical pieces that they're proposing, what they're going to change. Are they changing spin rate? Are they just changing the trampoline effect or whatever? And all of those little pieces are phenomenally important. So how it's done is and are there forces at work here? Is this egalitarian or is it sinister? Because we love a good conspiracy. Who doesn't?
Right. So
who doesn't love a good conspiracy? Are they doing this for evil reasons, or are they doing it for the good of the game literally?
Yeah, well, it's not going to help the game, so I don't see how they can say it's for the good of the game. But my point is, when you have so many variables and you only change one and you only test it at one speed, right now, as you go through the numbers, it's very linear as far as distance, club head speed, carry, etc. Now you're going to change one variable. I'd be very curious if that continues to have a linear mark when you're only changing the golf ball at a particular club head speed. I find it hard. Nature doesn't do linear very often, if ever. So I find that to be an issue there. My last point, I started the show talking about Ricky and Rory. And, Ricky so famously said when they started talking about the Live Golf League, competition is good. Competition's always been good. And he was kind of shot down by people like Rory. Yeah, but we don't want their competition. This is a huge advantage for the longer hitters on the way the courses are set up. I don't see the PGA Tour going back to 6,500 yard golf courses. That just doesn't.
Well, no, they never really played at that yardage in the modern era. They played at 68 to. So we should go look it up. What was Marion? What was
right? But my point is, if you're going to have this length golf course, you're going to then eliminate more players who have a chance to win, and that in the pro game, I think, is once again you're going to hurt the game. I don't see how this helps the game at all.
You could be right. You could be right. I think what I would like to do, obviously we can survey and talk to just your average recreational player, and we will do that for sure.
And I guess, where they screwed up when they came out with the Super, I think it was like 97, 98 when the Pro V1 started to come out. Actually, it was the Callaway Rule 35, I believe.
Well, no.
When I first hit one of those golf balls, like, oh my God.
Well, Tiger's Pebble Beach romp was in 2000, wasn't it?
It was 2000, but he was playing a Nike prototype that was even an upgrade from those two golf balls.
That's the modern ball, I think.
Right.
Traced it to there.
I agree. But what they should have done back then, 20 years ago, is said, these are the materials you can use. This is how much. You can't put this urethane cover on the golf ball and make it a super ball. It can be X percent urethane, X percent cerulite, and why they didn't have rules for the manufacturers when they first made, because that was the biggest change in the golf ball. Like I said, it went from a brick to a Bellata.
Yeah.
And that's when they needed to say, okay, X amount of materials. These materials you can't use. And they didn't. They just let the game, in the emphasis on distance back then, they let it get out of control. And whenever you try to roll something back, it never works out well for anybody. Can't think of a scenario where it has.
Well, we probably can. And it would be fun to try. I agree. That sort of sounds right when you say it. Like, well, society never rolls backwards, right? It always rolls forward. Well, forward might be changing something that was a mistake. We made a mistake. We're going to fix it. That could be here. I don't know. But you're now at the end of the show here, coming around to my argument, which is, why did they let the ball get out of control 20 years ago? Well, probably because they thought it would encourage people to play more, grow the
But my
game.
point
But
is
it
they need to keep
didn't
it
work
the
out that
same,
way.
not roll it
The
back.
game has gotten smaller. Not because of the ball, but the game has gotten smaller nonetheless. So now we end up in a situation where we have fewer people playing golf, and in the golf countries, and a ball that it's making golf courses, irrelevant, and hard to maintain and expensive to maintain. In the era where making the game cheaper and more accessible is critical to the survival of the game, if not the flourishing of the game. I'm going to finish on this point, and then we probably got to roll, because I know you got to roll, which is, I would like to pursue, I know we can talk to people and their players' reactions, amateurs, but we really want to talk to golf course superintendents and architects, because we really want to hear their point of view personally. So we got to get them on this show, and we'll certainly do some research. Audience, please do that as well. Talk to your superintendent, at your place where you play. But their point of view would be extremely important on the ball itself and how it affects the course.
Yeah. So my final point, COVID created an artificial boom. You do something as draconian as rolling back the distance, it's going to have a significant negative effect on the game. I'm already seeing articles that people are playing less golf because of the expense. They used to pay $150 a round to go on vacation. They'd play 10 rounds. Now that same golf course is $300 and they're only playing 5 rounds. So we're starting to see those articles. The COVID boom is ending. I think this is also a terrible time to do this. The higher ups, the aristocracy, thinks this is a great time to do this. The game's growing, blah, blah, blah. We can cut back the ball now. No. Now you're starting the downward trend and trajectory of rounds on top of less people playing, especially in the United States. So I see this as a terrible time to make this decision.
We need to have some scientific research that says the average player who plays 20, 25 rounds a year, whatever the average number of rounds is for the average 15, 20 handicap person, that person is going to play less golf because of the golf ball. And, and the economics will take care of itself. You're not going to get $300 a round if people can't afford it. The golf courses won't be able to charge that. Nobody's going to hand out government subsidized golf anywhere in the world, at least to my knowledge. Hopefully not. Let the free market take care of that. But that's why I want to talk to superintendents and architects. I'm like, well, what's it cost to maintain a golf course? It's probably a lot more than it was. And if people are willing to pay for that kind of maintenance, then that's their own fault. But it can't be universal. People can't afford $300 to go play on a Saturday or Sunday, and they're certainly going to play less. As you raise the prices, they'll play less and less and less, which is not what we want. Show for another day. And
a dozen and like I said, a dozen Pro V1s right now is $55 in the store plus tax, $60.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
$5 a ball.
It's ridiculous.
$5 a ball.
Yeah, and do you really want to hand your 8-year-old a $5 ball and have him hit it in the lake?
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Nope. You hate, So my point is, after R&D, that same golf ball is going to be $8 to $10.
Well, so facts not in evidence.
Can't happen.
Facts not in evidence.
That can't happen.
Well, I'm calling BS on that. You don't know that.
Okay.
You don't. We can't know
really,
that.
When you spend money on R&D, it makes it go down in cost? When has that ever happened?
There's way too many moving parts. What are you kidding? A lot of there's too many moving parts to just carte blanche say it's going to be a $10 ball just because it was rolled backwards. I have no idea what they're going to change technically in the manufacturing process to make the new ball. If it's just a sampling, if we're not changing the dimple pattern and we're not changing the materials, it's hard to see how much research is necessary to change the ball. We need a ball manufacturer. Add that to the list. We need somebody who makes golf balls to tell us some, and materials engineering, etc. I don't know that, so I don't want to blurt it out. I don't know that, but it is a gripe for you, and I know I know that. And maybe you're right. I don't know. Maybe I don't. But who's going to pay $10 for a golf ball? There's market forces, right? People have to come out of pocket. If the manufacturers think they're going to get $10, you think they think that?
I don't know, but the point is they're going to increase the cost. No question about it. And there's going to be less competition.
I think there is a question about cost.
This is going to force their competition out of business because a lot of the competition won't be able to do that.
That could be. Now we're talking about crony capitalism. Sure, that could be at work here. The big guys have more influence with the rulemaking bodies than the little guys. That makes total sense. And they're saying, well, get rid of them. But what doesn't make sense is that people will just line up to buy golf balls at double in price or triple.
No.
That doesn't, who's got that market research? We know a little bit about that. I mean, running a business is not that. You don't just make prices in thin air and then pray that people show up. It doesn't work that way in capitalism. It just doesn't.
Good. All right, my last point, I'm going to go with Ricky and say competition has always been good, and this hurts competition because you have to change all the other variables to keep competition the same if you change the golf ball.
All right. Well, so noted. So noted. I'm looking for a way to go backwards in time to a different, better game. Why? Because the game was better, all the way around better. I don't see anything better about the game now versus pick a year, 65. I really don't. And maybe we get Trevino on the show too. Some of those guys could speak to that. It'd be interesting to hear what we'll have to go look that up. All right. Dark Star, you want any last shots?
I would love to see him hard and fast. Hard. I want the greens to be like a pool table. That's how I like them. Yeah,
fairways, greens, and rough. If you miss the fairway, it rolls into the rough. You get really penalized versus getting an extra 30 yards down the middle from roll.
The only reason I watched The Hero is because I was dreaming about playing a golf course that hard and fast.
I think that's why the Open Championship is quickly becoming my favorite. I mean, Augusta, yes, still the top. But because you get so penalized for the errant shots that on a real open course, they don't always go to those. But a story for another day. All right, well, we'll be back on this golf ball thing for sure. We're going to stick with it. We're not one and done. There's a lot more to say and a lot more analysis to be done. So for today, the B team is out.
All right, Dr. Darkstar's out.
If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe to our new audio podcast. That is where you will get all of our show prep material, wide-ranging conversation, as well as topics that'll never get to YouTube. And there are a lot of those that we like to talk about that'll never make it to YouTube. So look in the description below for the link over to Substack. That's where you can subscribe to the podcast. And thank you again for being a fan.